So I want to spend some time to talk about the cameras in beat 'em up games and why virtually every beat 'em up from the dawn of man has got them wrong and why they're terrible. So here's Streets of Rage 2, widely considered one of the best beat 'em ups, even though it really isn't. Okay, so here we have a stage. Now I want you to pay attention to what's happening here. Axel's in the middle of the screen. He's attacking the guy to his left. And after he finishes up this attack, let's look at what happens. So the guy gets knocked off the screen, right? Now look at what Axel's doing. Axel's waiting for the guy to come back, but he's not coming back. He's jittering around. Both players right now can't even see the enemies that they're attacking. They're off the screen, and they're basically just standing there waiting for shit to come back. And the thing that blows me away about this is that I mean, even in the original arcade Final Fight, it's like this. Like the off-screen enemy, effect, where you spend like a quarter plus of the time that you're playing the game, just sitting around like an idiot, waiting for the enemies to find their way back around you to get back onto the screen, and it fucking sucks. Basically, the camera system in almost every beat 'em up ever made is fucking terrible for this reason. I mean, and I said you play like that new Raging Justice game, you play that game that came out not too long ago, like Fight and Rage, like the newer beat 'em ups. The thing that blows my mind is that none of them learned the lesson. Like after all this fucking time, after 30 years plus, they still haven't got it. They still don't know how to get it right, and so now that I've kind of, really put a microscope on that, I want you to see how the camera works in this new version of Final Fight, and you can see what I'm doing here. So I've rigged something up where I'm basically just spawning in, one enemy at a time, so you can really see like the whole flow here, how it works, and each enemy only has one health. So now look at this. Okay, so there's an enemy on the screen, right? You can kill the enemy and then they die, then another one comes back. But I want you to notice something interesting here. So notice how I have somebody that's walking. As long as they're on the screen, the camera can't move. But look at what happens here. So if I hit them back and they die, they can go off screen. But look at what happens when they're alive. See how it stopped the camera? I actually can't. Here, let me. So see how the camera stops. I can't actually get away from them. If they're basically there's an invisible wall around the camera that prevents the camera from moving when the enemies are on the stage. So basically, once the enemies are on the screen, they're on the screen. They're not getting off the screen. They're boxed in there. And the thing is like you think that this is just like a minor thing. Oh, whatever. It's not a big deal. It's actually fucking huge. It completely changes the way these games play, and see once the enemy dies, then the camera can move again. But see how once these people die, so I'm moving here. See how it spawned into the left there, so it stopped the camera. I'm telling you, this one little fucking tweak completely changes beat 'em ups. It completely changes the way you play them. All downtime from the game is removed. It's just constant forward movement and action. There's something always on the screen. You're never sitting around like an asshole waiting for some enemies to find their way back on the screen. Like I said, it completely changes this shit. And so, that's something that I said once again. It just blows my mind that they never got this right. That they never figured it out because it's so fucking obvious. And I mean, even like in other games. I mean, and this is actually one of the reasons that Guardian Heroes for the Saturn is such an ingenious game, and why basically for a very long time it was pretty much the best beat 'em up ever made, because they realized that you don't want to let the action get off of the camera. It doesn't make sense. And so once you do that, though, it just really just opens things up. And you can see here too. See how like if I knock this person over to the right, and see how I can't move back left now. But then when she starts moving, then I can again. That's what I'm talking about. Like it's this is the camera system that these beat 'em ups should have always had, and they never did. So I just wanted to make a video pointing this out and just really stressing it because, like, every time I play a new beat 'em up, I'm just immediately disappointed because I always hope it's like, oh man, you know, these guys after all this time, maybe they finally learned their lesson, maybe they finally got it, and they're gonna actually handle the camera properly. But nope, they basically never do. And that's part of the reason actually that I really wanted to make this version of Final Fight because basically, like, so that's kind of what I want this game to be. I just want to say like, okay, look, you fucking assholes. This is how you make a beat 'em up, okay? Do you fucking get it now? Can they stop being terrible? Can you get it right? You know, that is basically one of my motivations for doing this because so much of this stuff is just so fucking obvious, and anybody who actually played these games would immediately realize this stuff. But as we saw with that Raging Justice game, you know, subhuman robots tend to be the people that actually program these games, and they just end up being pieces of shit. Yeah, so basically, so that's the thing about the camera. In the endless stage, I also just kind of want to briefly mention, you know, like the respawn system. And so basically, the way it works is enemies can spawn in different places after they die. And so basically, they can spawn from the left, from the right, and then they can drop from the ceiling. They can come from the bottom of the stage and go up depending on the level. And so that's something else that I want to mention about this version of Final Fight. It actually, all of the spawn points are randomized. So even when you play arcade mode, there are some you know, specific enemy placements that will be the same every time, but for the most part, you know, the enemy placements are actually random, and even the enemies chosen to a certain extent, other than stuff like, you know, not putting bosses in just as random enemies, even though that happens in the endless stages. But I just want to point out basically that even the arcade mode to a certain extent has been kind of randomized, and so and that's kind of exciting because it does kind of vary it up a bit. It's like, you know, like when you play a level, you don't know, you know, is it going to be poison or is it going to be bread or whatever when you play the game, and that's kind of cool. You know, I like crap like that. So yeah, so this is I've been meaning to make a video about this for a while, and actually, I mean really, I could talk about this shit forever. I mean, I could basically make a 2-hour long presentation about like how to make a beat 'em up, like how you should actually do it, just because it seems like for whatever reason nobody knows how to do it. And because there are just so many like obvious things you do when you design one that amazingly pretty much nobody ever got right.